Imagine standing at the altar on your wedding night. The bride across from you is smiling, but as you look closer, you realize her figure leaves the wall behind her completely blank, casting absolutely no shadow. This is the only physical evidence left of Arav. He was a pragmatic photographer from New Delhi who vanished in the rural deserts of Rajasthan, leaving behind nothing but a shattered lens. Arav traveled to the remote village of Chandpur to debunk local superstitions. He viewed the frantic warnings of the native population as mere folklore, ignoring every plea to stay away from the edge of town. That arrogance transformed a local myth into a documented disappearance. Arav is gone, and the only clues to his whereabouts are buried within heavily corrupted digital files. The layout of Chandpur reveals a glaring anomaly. The villagers clustered their homes in a dense pack, leaving a massive, deliberate void around one specific structure on the far edge, the Kuni Haveli. The legends tied to this isolation are specific. Local claims describe traditional wedding music echoing at midnight, and the apparition of a bride walking with her feet turned entirely backward. Arav initially hypothesized that these phenomena were auditory hallucinations caused by wind through the ruins, a fabricated perimeter designed to deter trespassers. He treated a universally feared anomaly as a simple anthropological case study, failing to realize why the village had spent centuries maintaining such a strict distance. At 11:55 p.m. on his first night, Arav entered the Haveli. His initial recordings captured only the silence of structural decay and the settling of ancient stone. Suddenly, the environment reacted. The sounds of a traditional wedding began to echo as hundreds of antique candles flared to life simultaneously, flooding the hallway with light and an intense thermal spike. A bride slowly descended the central staircase. She moved without a sound, extending a traditional wedding garland toward Arav in invitation to join her. As she reached him, the ambient wind died completely. In that silence, Arav's primary camera suffered an inexplicable power drain, cutting the feed to black. The entity strategically blinded Arav's equipment, choosing to strip away his ability to document reality before attempting any physical harm. Arav retreated to the village to consult the eldest resident, hoping to uncover the historical root of the haunting. This timeline traces the haunting back 2 centuries to a groom's greed-driven betrayal. His family, shamed by the abandoned marriage, locked the original bride inside this Haveli and burned her alive. Her dying breath carried a binding vow, a curse to claim every future groom who crossed the threshold of the property. The haunting acts as a targeted execution of a broken contract, a 200-year-old mechanism that claims every groom who crosses the threshold. Arav returned on the second night with a new strategy, deploying multiple redundant recording devices to bypass the localized power failures. At midnight, the backup systems failed as well. Only one lens stayed active, capturing a horrific reality. The bride's face was partially charred, and her lips were stained with fresh blood. Suddenly, Arav's perception of the ruin fractured. He stood in the center of a pristine wedding pavilion, surrounded by guests who sat perfectly still with empty, unblinking eyes. Arav was now a forced participant in the entity's historical reenactment, trapped as the lead actor in the very tragedy he intended to record. As the phantom wedding vows began, Arav felt a sudden physical paralysis. He was being bound to the entity, his legs rooted to the pavilion floor. He threw the elder's protective amulet. The illusion shattered, revealing a weeping, trapped girl pleading for a final release. Arav completed the broken wedding ritual to pacify the spirit. The supernatural energy dissipated, the heavy atmosphere lifted, and the anomaly seemed to collapse. He walked away convinced that human logic and a simple ritual had neutralized the threat, believing he had successfully categorized and solved the mystery. The next morning, the Haveli was once again a crumbling ruin. Arav was missing, and the villagers recovered only his final camera from the debris. The final video file shows Arav standing alone in the ruins. He looks exhausted, but he is visibly relieved, believing he is safe. In the final seconds, the camera jerks.
The red-veiled bride appears directly behind him, smiling at the lens just before the feed cuts to static. The supposed salvation was a psychological trap designed to lower Arav's defenses. Some ancient curses cannot be outsmarted. They simply wait for their next victim to believe they have won.